So we're here in the Estonian Parliament in Tallinn, and it is the Independence Day of Estonia. And there has been a military march, a military parade in the morning. And yesterday we had a conference with Blue Awakening, which is the youth wing, I think, of the party EKRE.
Yes, the youth wing of the Conservative People's Party of Estonia.
Right. So we're here with Ruuben Kaalep, and he has just given us a private tour of the parliament. The parliament is empty right now, so we had it all to ourselves. It's been very interesting. So let's just start with, well, of course, you're a member of parliament as well. I should say that, for EKRE. What is the English translation of EKRE?
The Conservative People's Party of Estonia.
And what is the Independence Day about? What is the historical origin of the Independence Day?
Well, the independence of Estonia from the Russian Empire was declared in 1918. And it was after 300 years of Russian rule that we managed, actually after a long metapolitical struggle of national awakening that in several forms took place in the 19th century in many European countries, we managed to regain our ethnic identity and our national spirit that allowed us during the First World War and all the mess that it caused. The empires were collapsing, the whole European map was redrawn basically, and during the Russian Civil War we managed to fight against the communists and defend our borders. So this is what we celebrate, the sacrifice of our ancestors who fought for our freedom.
Right, and like I said, yesterday we had this conference called Ethnofutur, and I think this was the fourth one.
Yes.
And it's the second time I spoke, and you were also a speaker. We had the Minister of Finance of Estonia, Martin Helme, he was a speaker. And of course there are many things that I, as an outsider in Estonia, found very impressive about it. But let's just talk about Blue Awakening. What does that mean? Where does that word come from?
It is a reference to the permanent need for a national renewal and a new national awakening. We had this national awakening that I mentioned during the 19th century, which allowed us to gain enough self-identity in order to really create a free and independent Estonian country. So in the end of Soviet occupation, there was also a period of national awakening. And both times it was a result of a long metapolitical struggle against foreign rule, which kind of shows that the place where the struggle actually takes place is within people's hearts and people's minds. Without that, you don't have this sense that we are one nation, which is always what foreign rulers try to impose on you. Either a sense of complete individualism or total collectivism, which both were in some ways represented in the Soviet ideology and Soviet rule. What I think and what we as Estonian nationalists of the 21st century think is that right now we are facing again a huge threat from foreign ideologies. the globalist threat that is not only about the survival of our nation, but all European nations altogether. So we need a new national awakening, and that is what we have been working for the last more than 7 years. When EKRE was founded in 2012, I was one of its founders. That year also we founded the Blue Awakening, which was meant more like a meta-political youth movement, which doesn't only concern with everyday politics, but with culture in the wider sense.
Right, because I first came to the Baltic states a week ago. Well, it isn't my first visit, but I came here a week ago, and I went to Lithuania, and there was an Independence Day march there, and we had a conference, and then I traveled through Latvia, and then came to Tallinn. And what I was struck by, and I think everyone who comes from Western Europe to the Baltic states is struck by, is that this is pretty much ethnostates. You don't see a lot of, from our perspective, foreigners at least. So you are pretty much where we want to be. The countries in western parts of Europe, in Scandinavia, and nationalists in Germany and so on. So can you tell me something about what motivates you to be a part of a nationalist movement when you already have nationalism?
Well, of course, Estonia is constitutionally an ethnostate, just like Latvia. The Estonian constitution clearly states that the main purpose of Estonian state is to preserve Estonian ethnicity, Estonian language, and Estonian culture throughout the ages. But right now, I think the situation in whole Europe shows that simply preserving or trying to conserve the situation that we have isn't enough. We need to be ready for everything that has happened in the Western Europe, with massive influx of migrants, which could lead by the end of this century to Estonians as well, but most European nations becoming minority in their own states. And if this happens to Western Europe, this will come to Estonia as well. We are not some isolated island where no bad things can come. Estonian history very clearly shows that we are always caught between huge empires, huge powers from both the east and the west. And the only way how we can save our nation is if we are ready to fight. There are many examples for Estonians especially in, for example, the Finno-Ugric nations in Russia that are going extinct right now. And we have seen their fate. We have been very lucky that we managed throughout the last 1,000 years, when there have been moments when half of the population of Estonia was killed by foreign invasions or plagues or every kind of catastrophes that we have survived. We have seen that, and we have something in us that we need to preserve in order to preserve our culture and our nation. So this is why we need nationalism, and I think this is a lesson for all European peoples. It's simply that we have suffered very much as an ethnicity throughout history, and this has made us see some things that are important, but it still isn't enough, because in Estonia as well we have this huge duality, this fight between globalists and nationalists. The ideologies that come from the West influence everything in Estonia as well. We need to keep true to what our ancestors taught us.
Right. I mean, when we had our conference, like I said, both of us spoke at the Ethnofutur conference last night or yesterday, and you are a member of parliament in Tallinn, in Estonia, and we also had the Minister of Finance, Martin Helme, was also a speaker at this event. And there are so many things about that picture that creates thoughts in my head, at least, because in my home countries, in Scandinavia, the ruling forces basically want to shut down our events. They want to make it very difficult for us to hold events. And here I can speak alongside people in parliament and even in government position. And when the minister came to the event, he didn't come in an armored car with like a huge following of security guards, as you would expect from politicians in other countries. And that, of course, tells me that this is a safe country and that, well, all of you are men of the people. Have you faced any hostility, or has people in your party faced any hostility within Estonia because you're nationalists?
Well, yes, there are some leftist groups, of course, just like in Western Europe, that are fighting for these globalist ideas that basically hate everything that is sacred for Estonian nationalists. But mostly they are just, they're small groups, they're more like internet warriors. They don't have enough balls to come out to the streets. And well, we will see tonight at the Torchlight March if there will be some counter-protest and how many people will come there. But based on what we saw last year, it will be probably something very, very small and silly.
Yeah. Because I was here last year, and we had about 10,000 people, I think, in the Torch March, and about 5 protesters or something like that. Do you expect the same figures tonight?
I would, yes. Well, maybe there will be 10 this time, but I'm not sure. Maybe just 8.
Right. So what about other countries, though? Because you're a part of the EU, and the EU is more of a globalist project, and you're nationalists. What kind of reactions have you faced from other countries? Have they tried to put pressure on Estonia to accept mass immigration as the rest of Europe does? How is that dialogue?
Well, there was pressure put on all Eastern European countries in 2015 by the EU program of migrant quotas, which was actually very helpful for us because that made a lot of people in Estonia see how EU is not fighting for our interests. It's fighting against our national interests and our ethnic survival. And if they are trying to push something like that on us again, which I've heard that there are again plans in the European Commission or by Germany and France to force migration from completely different cultures, completely different world upon European nations, then European nations one day will rise up against that.
So you don't expect mass immigration to start coming here? You expect that you guys can resist that?
I sure hope so, but we need to fight for that because there are strong liberal forces in Estonia that are supported by the mass media, the finance industry, that want to turn Estonia into something that Sweden is like. So we need to resist them and we need to fight them.
So just the last couple of questions are about how you guys came to be an influential party. Can you tell me something about how you were able to be so successful?
I think it's in huge part thanks to a new generation of nationalists coming out in Estonia. It was completely different picture like 10 years ago when I first joined the nationalist movement, when I was the youngest member in our nationalist groups. And right now there are so many young people who are finding our movement, who are coming here and who find that they really have this place where they can speak up, where they can meet friends who think the same way, who want to take part of the same struggle. This is something very important that we have given to young Estonians, young Estonian nationalists, because I'm not saying there weren't young Estonian nationalists before. It's just that we have given them a voice. And this is something that other parties, other political forces, other ideologies haven't been able to do, because they don't have anything so sacred for them to fight for.
Right. So the final question is, when you look at Western Europe and all the mess that is there, and how all nationalists there try to struggle to accomplish something, with your success and your knowledge about what you did right, when you see Western Europe, the other parts of Europe, what would you suggest that they do different, or what would you say to them?
Well, first of all, it's kind of different situation, because a lot of Western Europe has been so much brainwashed already, and so many migrants have been brought in that it is already becoming mathematically impossible to do what we have done in Estonia. But I still think it's very important for you to stand up for your values, to not apologize for being a nationalist, never apologize for loving your people and your country and your ancestors. And if you do that, you inspire other people to do that. This is the most important thing. I think this has been the key, not only in Estonia, but we have managed to inspire other nationalists from other countries, just like they have inspired us. And also events like yesterday's conference, or also today's Torchlight March, which every year brings more and more like-minded nationalists from other countries to Estonia, are a very good way, very important way of doing that, to inspire each other, because we are in one common struggle.